Hey y'all, so it's been a while since I did a book haul, so it is once again time for a book haul, and I did not realize how many books I had to haul until I started making a list, and I've got several to haul for you today. My last book haul was sometime in March or April, so I've been collecting these since the spring, and I definitely don't remember what order I got them in, so I'm just gonna go down my list. So back in the spring, I went on a little bit of a nonfiction kick, so I got several nonfiction books, so I'm gonna start with those. The first one of those being The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. I did a whole video series talking about my process going through the KonMari method, and I talked about my opinions on the book in there, so I will leave that linked up in the cards. Next up is Dear Ijewele, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Once again, I've already talked about this book in a video. I honestly can't remember what it was. It was some sort of a wrap-up, and I will leave that linked up in the cards. Next up is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a book all about harnessing your creativity, and I started reading it back in May and I ended up putting it down. I honestly got really sucked in by this cover, and like I said, I was in a nonfiction mood and I was like thinking about a lot of creative things, so I got really interested in this one. Still definitely interested in it, but I need to get back into a nonfiction mood before I pick it up. Next up, I picked up a copy of The Elements of Style, which I have been told is basically required reading for anyone who wants to do any sort of writing, and I have not yet read it. So I went ahead and picked up a used copy that was like $2 at a used bookstore, and I plan to get to this at some point. Obviously, it's not super fun reading, so it might take a while, but I definitely plan to get to this. And then more books on writing, the first of those being Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. This is a favorite of Kat from Katie-tastic, and I was going through a phase where I was getting a lot of writing craft books, and this one was pretty high up on the list of ones that I felt like I wanted to get. Another that I got because Kat really loves it is Self-Editing for Fiction Writers. Once again, just another book on writing craft that Kat really recommended. And finally, closing off this nonfiction section is On Writing by Stephen King. This is one that I've been meaning to pick up for ages. It's also one that Kat recommended, but I've read many of his writing tips online and I really connected with them, so I really wanted to get this, and finally I did. Also, in the past few months, I picked up several manga and trade comics, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to those. I picked up volumes 5, 6, and 11 of the Battle Royale manga adaptation, and I've also got volume 8 in the mail to me, but it's not here yet. I really enjoyed the book Battle Royale when I read it back in May, and I have since been collecting the manga adaptation. These are just ones that I found in random used bookstores, and now that I've run out of random used bookstores to find them in, I've started ordering them online for as inexpensive as I can find them. So hopefully soon I will finish this collection and be able to read the whole series. I also picked up the first volume of the Fairy Tale manga series. This is a series that I have been wanting to start for a while because it has a really interesting concept, and while I can get it at my local public library, I did find this first volume for pretty inexpensive, and I went ahead and picked it up and hope to start it sometime in the near future. I also picked up the second volume of Sword Art Online Fairy Dance. Now, I don't have the first volume of Fairy Dance, but I do have the first volume of the entire series, and this is a series that I've been wanting to read for a while, and I found this for really inexpensive, so I figured I'd go a little bit out of order and go ahead and get it. Can't remember if I've already shown this in a book haul, but if I have, then I'll just cut this part out. But I got volume 4 of the Giant Days comic series. And then I got volume 5 of the Giant Days comic series. This is the most recent trade volume to come out, and I have not read it yet, but so far I've really enjoyed this series, and I hope to read this very soon. I also got volume 7 of the Saga comic series. I haven't read it yet. I honestly want to go back and reread the previous volumes before reading this one because I felt like I wasn't up to date enough when I read volume 6, so it'll be a while before I get to this one, but this is a series that I do really enjoy, and I do want to get onto that fairly quickly because I feel like I've gotten behind on this series. Next up is Deadly Class Volume 1. This is another series that I've been wanting to start for a while and I've been really intrigued by, and I saw the first volume for really inexpensive, so I went ahead and got it. Along the same lines, the next thing I got was Morning Glories Volume 1. Like I said with the last one, this was pretty inexpensive at a used bookstore. It's a series that I've been really intrigued by, and so I went ahead and found the first volume and got it. Next is the bind up of Full Metal Alchemist Volume volumes 4 through 6. I have the first 3 in a bind-up edition, and I found this, once again, for inexpensive at a used bookstore, and I haven't started the series yet, but it's another one that I've been meaning to start. Honestly, this is probably going to be the majority of my booktubeathon TBR, is like series that I've been meaning to start for a while, of like comics and manga and graphic novels, so I do think that I'm going to get to this fairly soon, but yeah, inexpensive stuff at used bookstores is my weakness. I also got the first volume of the Sword Art Online light novel series. This is the source material for both the anime and the manga, so I figured I'd probably want to read this as well, and once again, inexpensive at a used bookstore. It's a series I want to start. Like I said, I think I'm going to be picking these up pretty soon. Next up is A World Without You by Beth Revis. Beth Revis is one of my favorite authors. This is a book that came out by her last year. I still haven't read it, but once again, found it at a used bookstore for pretty inexpensive. It's one that I have been really intrigued by, and once again, one that I've been wanting to get to for a while, so I went ahead and snagged it. Next up is Geekerella by Ashley Poston. I picked this up when Booksplosion was doing their read-along. I planned to read it along with them, but I just got behind because of finals and stuff like that, so I still haven't read it, but it's one that sounds super cute, and once I'm in a cute contemporary mood, you can bet that I'm going to be picking this up. Next up is one where you're going to be like, really, Kristen? And yes, really, Kristen. I got a copy of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie in Korean. I think I've mentioned this like once, but I am currently learning Korean. I talk about why, and I talk about it a little bit more in depth in my quarterly goals video, which I will leave linked up in the cards. But one thing that I thought might be helpful is to try to get a book that I'm really familiar with in Korean, so that even if I can't understand all of it, I can read through it and try to pick out words that I understand until I am able to read it. And Harry Potter was definitely in contention for that, but given that there are so many made-up words in that universe, like, I don't know, Hogwarts or something like that, or Muggles, I figured that this, which is a fairly straightforwardly written book, would be a little bit more helpful. So it'll be a while before I am actually able to read this book, but it is really helpful to go through and pick out words or phrases that I can understand, and so that's what I'm using this for. And yes, I do now own 4 copies of this book. Next up is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is one that has been on my radar for quite a while and that I've heard a lot of really good things about, and I love this cover also, by the way, but I just kept thinking about getting it, and eventually I just decided to get it, and I still haven't read it yet, but it is one that is super fascinating. It's very sci-fi, but it's almost more of a character study than anything, and that just really fascinates me. So definitely one that I'm really intrigued by and want to pick up in the near future. I've been trying not to say that in this video, but it is true for this one. Next up is a beautiful, beautiful book by 2 beautiful, beautiful people, and that is the Superfruit book. If you're not aware, Superfruit is the duo Scott and Mitch from Pentatonics, and they've now started releasing music under just their Superfruit name, and I absolutely love them. They're one of my favorite groups, and this is the book that they released as Superfruit. It's kind of a photo collection and kind of a memoir. I've yet to flip all the way through this, but I absolutely love them, and I'm sure I'm gonna love this. Next up is probably my favorite book that I've gotten over the past few months, and you've seen it sitting in the background, and you've probably been wondering what it is. And it is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the deluxe edition, which I didn't know existed, but it's beautiful. So as you can see, it's in this box, and it's got a completely different cover than the normal cover. It doesn't even have the title on it, but it is so beautiful, and it's in such good condition too, and I'm obsessed with it. I also initially thought that this was her actual signature, and I almost died, but it is not, unfortunately. But still, this is such a cool, like, collector's item, and like I said, I love it. I'm also really sad because the bookstore that I found this at also had a copy of Half-Blood Prince in this edition, and they had sold it like a day or 2 before, and I was so sad because if y'all know me, y'all know that 6 and 7 are my 2 favorite books in the series. They're like tied for my favorite book, with 6 slightly edging 7 out, but yeah, I'm so glad to have this. Really sad that I didn't get to 6 fast enough. So finally, we've reached the last book in this haul, which I'm glad about because honestly, this haul's kind of made me feel a little bit bad about my book buying tendencies, because in these past few months, I think I've read 3 books, and I don't even want to try to count the number of books I've just hauled, but either way, the last book that I have here is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. So I know that in a lot of my book hauls I say all too often, oh, I plan to get to this book soon, and with this one I legitimately mean it because there are two books that I'm trying to decide between to read like literally today, and this is one of them. The premise of this book is basically kind of like The Breakfast Club, where 5 very different people go into detention, but then, plot twist, one of them dies, and it's kind of like a whodunit murder mystery, and these 4 leftover people are the suspects, and that's just super intriguing to me, and I'm super intrigued to pick it up. Like I said, I might pick it up today. There are 2 books that I'm trying to choose between, but yeah, definitely super high up there on list of books that I want to read like now. So those are the books that I have gotten in the past few months. Like I said, way too many, especially given how many books I've read, but I'm hoping that getting back into reading soon and the booktubeathon will really help me to get my TBR down a little bit, and hopefully I can curb my book buying quite a bit. These past few months have been a particularly book buying heavy time period because I've gone on 2 trips and I had my birthday, so it's definitely a period of time where I'm more willing to spend money on books. So hopefully over the next few months, as the summer winds down and as school starts, which I'm so not excited about, hopefully that will curb the book buying a bit. But that is it for this book haul. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!